Welcome back to Artificially Informed, the podcast series that takes an in-depth look at the Florida Attorney General's Government in the Sunshine Manual 2025 edition. As always, this episode is produced with the extensive use of artificial intelligence. I write the prompts and review and edit the output. In today's episode 6, we continue our comprehensive look at Part 1, Section C, what meetings of members of boards are covered. Application of the Sunshine Law. 2. We'll be navigating pages 31 through 39 of your manual. Our discussion will cover personnel matters, including collective bargaining, disciplinary proceedings, evaluations, and selection committees, purchasing meetings, quasi-judicial matters, proceedings or hearings, real property negotiations, security meetings, social events, and finally, telephone conversations and virtual meetings. Let's begin by examining how the Sunshine Law applies to personnel discussions. Segment 1, Personnel Matters. Starting on page 31, we delve into personnel matters. Generally, if a public board or commission is talking about personnel stuff, their meetings have to be open to the public unless there's a specific law saying otherwise. Just check out Times Publishing Company versus Williams, a Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal case from 1969. It was later modified by New versus Miami Herald Publishing Company in 1985, but the core idea remains. A collective bargaining discussions. 1. Strategy sessions. There's a special rule for collective bargaining. The chief executive or their representative can meet privately with the legislative body to talk strategy. This is under Section 286.011 Florida statutes and Section 110.201, subsection 4 Florida statutes for state departments. So if a city has a labor negotiating committee but no city manager, that committee can act as the chief executive officer and use this private meeting exemption with the city council. That's according to Attorney General Opinion 85-99. And Attorney General Opinion 99-27 agreed, saying a manager-formed committee for negotiations can have these closed sessions. It even covers caucuses during ongoing negotiations. Now, if a school superintendent completely hands off collective bargaining to a separate committee and isn't involved in the talks, then these private strategy sessions only apply to the committee and the school board. The superintendent can't be part of those private talks. That's Attorney General Opinion 98-06, this private meeting rule. It's only for real collective bargaining talks that are happening or are about to happen. Attorney General Opinion 85-99 made that clear. It doesn't let public bodies privately chat about, say, a proposed mini-perk ordinance or their plans for unionization, and a public body can't just close an entire meeting by squeezing in one exempt topic. Attorney General Opinion 85-99 again, while Section 447.605, subsection 1, Florida statutes, doesn't directly mention it, the legislature clearly meant for these private discussions to stay private. Attorney General Opinion 03-09, 2, negotiations. But here's the kicker. The actual bargaining sessions between the chief executive and the bargaining agent, those are not exempt. Section 447.605, subsection 2, Florida statute says they have to be held in the sunshine. Once the bargaining starts, any meeting to discuss employer-employee stuff, even after an impasse, is open. City of Fort Myers versus News Press Publishing Company, Incorporated, 514, Southern 2nd, 408, Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, 1987, spells this out. Brown versus Denton, 152 Southern 3rd, 8, Florida 1st District Court of Appeal, 2014, back that up. And just like any other open meeting, you got to keep minutes. Informal opinion to Fullwider, June 14th, 1993. Think of it this way. The legislature split the rules. When the public employer is talking amongst themselves, it's private. When they're talking to the other side, it's public. City of Fort Myers versus News Press Publishing Company, Incorporated, 514 Southern 2nd, 412 said it best. Brown versus Denton, 152 Southern 3rd, 12. even added that letting pension benefits change in closed-door talks meant ignoring an important party who also had the right to be in the room, the public. And nope, a collective bargaining agreement can't be used to get around the Sunshine Law. Palm Beach County Classroom Teachers Association versus School Board of Palm Beach County, 411 Southern 2nd, 1375, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 1982. B. Disciplinary, grievance, and complaint review proceedings. Meetings where a board or commission is handing out discipline? Yep, those are under the Sunshine Law. For example, Attorney General Opinion 92-65 dealt with an employee termination hearing for a housing authority, and it had to be open. And News Press Publishing Company versus Wisher, 345 Southern 2nd, 646 Florida, 1977, even got mad when a county used pseudonyms or cloaked references to talk about a department head's reprimand. Not cool. So 2 members of a civil service board holding a private chat about an employee appeal during a meeting recess? That's a Sunshine Law violation. Citizens for Sunshine, Incorporated versus City of Sarasota, number 2010, California, 4387. November Charlie, Florida, 12th Circuit Court, February 27, 2012. Same goes for a city police department's complaint review board as per Barfield versus City of West Palm Beach, number Charlie Lima 94-2141- Alpha, Charlie, Florida, 15th Circuit Court, May 6, 1994, and Attorney General Opinion 80-27 about a sheriff's civil service board. But a quick chat between 2 members of a 3-member review board about picking the 3rd member, that might be okay, but it should still follow Sunshine Law rules, says Attorney General Opinion 93-79. Think of the Dascott versus Palm Beach County case, 877 Southern 2nd, 8, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 2004. A pre-termination panel, even with the administrator's final say, should have been public because that authority was delegated to the panel. Attorney General Opinion 10-14 also said a charter schools team reviewing employment decisions needs to be open, but a personnel council of citizens that only hears appeals, not necessarily open according to Attorney General Opinion 77-132. If a grievance committee can make final decisions like upholding or denying a grievance, it's under the Sunshine Law because it's exercising decision-making authority. Dascott versus Palm Beach County, Supra at 13. Attorney General Opinion 84-70 backs this up for staff grievance committees making non-binding recommendations. But a newspaper reporter trying to get into a grievance arbitration hearing? Palm Beach County Classroom Teachers Association versus School Board of Palm Beach County, 411 Southern 2nd, 1375. Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 1982, said a collective bargaining agreement can't stop open meetings. On the flip side, Jordan versus Jenny, 938 Southern 2nd, 556, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 2006, found that a professional standards committee wasn't subject to the Sunshine Law if the Inspector General made the final disciplinary call and didn't deliberate with the committee. McDougall versus Culver, 3 Southern 3rd, 391, Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, 2009, had a similar finding for internal affairs memos that were just recommendations, not joint decisions. And if the mayor, acting as chief executive, is in charge of disciplining city employees as per the city charter, private meetings with employees about discipline aren't subject to the Sunshine Law. That's City of Sunrise versus News and Sun Sentinel Company, 542 Southern 2nd, 1354, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 1989. But if a 3-member panel is appointed by the city manager to handle post-termination hearings, those should be open. Attorney General Opinion 07-54. C. Evaluations. Want to know if a board's evaluating county employees? Yes, those meetings for interviewing, job evaluations, and even termination interviews for at-will employees are subject to the Sunshine Law. Attorney General Opinion 89-37. If a board is evaluating its CEO, that review process should definitely be public, as per Section 286.011 Florida statutes. You can't just have individual board members secretly send written comments to the chair for a private chat with the CEO. Attorney General Opinion 93-90. However, if individual school board members meet with the superintendent to discuss their own evaluations, it's not a Sunshine Law violation as long as the board's official evaluation is done publicly. Attorney General Opinion 97-23. D. Selection and screening committees. Advisory committees that help with job selections are also under the Sunshine Law. Take Wood versus Marston, 442 Southern 2nd, 934, Florida, 1983. A university president's committee that screened law school dean applicants, subject to Sunshine Law because they were making actual decisions by rejecting candidates. See also Kraus versus Reno, 366 Southern 2nd, 1244, Florida 3rd District Court of Appeal, 1977, City Managers Advisory Group for Police Chief Selection, and Attorney General Opinion 77-43, County Bar Association Committee for School Board Attorney Selection. So, if it's a state university presidential search, the Sunshine Law applies, Attorney General Opinion 23-04, and no. Committee members can't use a search firm to anonymously rank candidates to secretly influence future meetings. While Section 1004.098, subsection 2, paragraph A, Florida statutes provide some exemptions for search committee meetings if they're recorded, those only apply if the committee follows all the rules. But if a screening committee is just gathering information for the decision maker, not rejecting applicants, then it's outside the Sunshine Law. Cape Publications, Incorporated versus City of Palm Bay, 473 Southern 2nd, 222, Florida 5th District Court of Appeal, 1985, found no violation when a city manager had people sit in on police chief interviews as they were only helping him gather info. Knox versus District School Board of Brevard, 821 Southern 2nd, 311, 314, Florida 5th District Court of Appeal, 2002, agreed for an interview team that just made recommendations to the superintendent. Segment 2, purchasing meetings, quasi-judicial matters, real property negotiations, security meetings, social events. Let's move on to purchasing meetings on page 34. A. Application of Sunshine Law. If a public college's purchasing director creates a committee to review contractor proposals, that committee's under the Sunshine Law. Why? Because their job is to weed through the various proposals to determine which were acceptable and to rank them accordingly. That's Silver Express Company versus District Board of Lower Tribunal Trustees, 691 Southern 2nd, 1099, Florida 3rd District Court of Appeal, 1997. Same goes for state agency panels that create requests for proposals, Informal Opinion to Lewis, March 15, 1999, and city selection committees for consultants, Attorney General Opinion 80-51. And if a city clerk just unilaterally ranks proposals based on individual evaluations, Sunshine Law violation. That's Leachwells versus City of Bradenton, 734 Southern 2nd, 1168, 1171, Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, 1999. Also, Schweikert versus Citrus County Port Authority, number 12-California, -13, 39, Florida. Fifth Circuit Court, September 30th, 2013, said an ad hoc committee must rank proposals at a public meeting. However, Carlson versus Florida Department of Revenue, 227 Southern 3rd, 1261, Florida 1st District Court of Appeal, 2017, found that an evaluation team whose members just individually scored proposals and didn't rank or exclude anyone wasn't subject to open meeting rules. Now remember the Port Everglades Authority versus International Longshoremen's Association, Local 1922-1, 652 Southern 2nd, 1169, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 1995 case. A board's committee violated the Sunshine Law when they asked bidders to leave during competitor presentations. And Pinellas County School Board versus SunCam Incorporated, 829 Southern 2nd, 999. Florida, 2nd District Court of Appeal, 2002, found a school board violated the law by refusing to let someone videotape a public meeting evaluating contractor proposals. Good news. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph B, Florida statutes, now has an exemption for parts of competitive solicitation meetings, but they still have to be recorded. B, recording requirement for exempt meetings. So if there's a negotiation with a vendor, an oral presentation, or questions being answered as part of a competitive bid process, those parts of the meeting are exempt from the Sunshine Law. Same for team meetings where negotiation strategies are discussed. This is all under Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraphs B, 1, and 2, Florida statutes, Carlson versus Florida Department of Revenue, 227 Southern 3rd, 1261, Florida 1st District Court of Appeal, 2017, even clarified that negotiation strategies includes activities inextricably intertwined with those discussions. But remember, sealed bids for public works projects still have to be opened at a public meeting. That's Section 255.0518 Florida statutes. The term competitive solicitation just means asking for and getting sealed bids, proposals, or replies in a competitive way, no matter how it's done. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph A1, Florida statutes, and a team is just a group set up by an agency to negotiate bids. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph A2, Florida statutes. Here's the big rule for these exempt meetings. You have to make a complete recording and nothing can be off the record. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph C, Florida statutes. Audio recordings are a good way to go, says Attorney General Opinion 10-42. These recordings and any records shown in the exempt meeting are private until the agency announces its decision or 30 days after the bids open, whichever comes first. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph C1 and 2, Florida statutes. If all bids are rejected and the agency plans a new solicitation, the recordings stay private for up to 12 months. Section 286.0113, subsection 2, paragraph C3, Florida statutes. Next, we discuss quasi-judicial matters, proceedings, or hearings on page 36. Just because a board is acting in a quasi-judicial way doesn't mean they can close their doors. Canny versus Board of Public Instruction of Alachua County, 278 Southern 2nd, 260 Florida, 1973 made that clear. And Occidental Chemical Company versus Mayo, 351 Southern 2nd, 336, Florida, 1977 agreed. Even a Public Service Commission's quasi-judicial process doesn't exempt it from Sunshine Law. Same for grievance hearings as per Palm Beach County Classroom Teachers Association versus School Board of Palm Beach County, 411, Southern 2nd, 1375, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 1982. So, unless there's a specific law saying otherwise, a board acting in a quasi-judicial role must be open. Attorney General Opinion 10-04. This applies to special magistrates too, unless their decision-making authority is delegated. Attorney General Opinion 10-15. Now, real property negotiations, also on page 36. If a public board is buying or selling property, those negotiations generally have to be in the sunshine unless a specific law says otherwise. City of Miami Beach versus Burns, 245 Southern 2nd, 38 Florida, 1971, said a city couldn't close condemnation discussions. And if a single board member is delegated the power to negotiate a lease or purchase, they can't do it in secret. Attorney General Opinion 74-294. But a law exempting public records for property purchases doesn't mean the negotiations can be secret. Attorney General Opinion 95-06. Advisory committees dealing with land acquisition also fall under the Sunshine Law. Think Attorney General Opinions 87-42, Mayor-appointed committee for city property transfer, and 86-51, Water Management District Land Selection Committee. Even a county commission committee negotiating a lease agreement is subject to Sunshine Law, as seen in Monroe County versus Pigeon Key Historical Park, Incorporated, 647 Southern 2nd, 857, Florida 3rd District Court of Appeal, 1994. Let's discuss security meetings on page 36. While there's no blanket exemption for all security discussions, if a meeting would reveal a security or fire safety plan that's already confidential under Section 119.071, subsection 3, paragraph A, Florida statutes, then that part of the meeting is exempt from Sunshine Law. Section 286.0113, subsection 1, Florida statutes says so. Informal opinion to Sherman, July 2nd, 2018, explains it applies to any meeting where such a record would be revealed. Cybersecurity information, if it's confidential, under Section 119.0725, subsection 2, Florida statutes, also makes related meeting portions exempt. Section 119.0725, subsection 3, Florida statutes. And just like with purchasing, these exempt parts have to be recorded and transcribed, and those recordings are confidential. This extends to state agency cybersecurity records, Section 2.318, subsection 6, Florida statutes, local government utility security records, Section 286.0113, subsection 3, paragraph A, Florida statutes, and even campus emergency response plans for colleges, Section 1004.0962, subsection 4, Florida statutes, and other post-secondary institutions, Section 1004.055, subsection 2, Florida statutes. Be aware, there's also an exemption for meetings that would reveal building plans or maps of 911 or public safety radio communication systems. That's Section 286.0113, subsection 4, paragraph B, Florida statutes. Next, we cover social events on page 37. Public board members can absolutely hang out socially, but the big rule, they can't discuss anything that might come before the board for official action. Attorney General Opinion 92-79, Informal Opinion to Bachelor, May 27, 1982, agreed. So, a private organization hosting a luncheon for board members, not subject to Sunshine Law, as long as no public business is discussed among the members. Attorney General Opinion 72-158, but watch out for secret meetings before official ones, even if they're purely social. Well, that's a no-no. As Attorney General Opinion 71-295 warned, because it can hide discussions from the public. Also, check out pages 48 to 49 about inaudible discussions. You can't just talk quietly to hide things. Segment 3. Telephone conversations and virtual meetings. Finally, let's examine telephone conversations and virtual meetings, starting on page 37. Private phone conversations, private phone calls between board members about future board actions. That's a Sunshine Law violation. To interpret the statute as applying only to in-person meetings would render an absurd result. Gilliams versus State, 359 Southern 3rd, 784, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 2023. Transparency for Florida, Incorporated versus City of Port St. Lucy, 240 Southern 3rd, 780, Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 2018, even said a series of phone calls between council members and the city attorney could be a Sunshine Law problem. And remember our earlier chat on pages 23 to 24 about emails and texts. Same rules apply. B. Authorization to conduct and participate in public meetings via teleconferencing, video conferencing, or other electronic media. 1. Sunshine Law. Even though the Florida Constitution and the Sunshine Law say meetings must be open to the public, they don't say board members have to be physically present. Burton versus Oates, 362 Southern 3rd, 311, Florida 5th District Court of Appeal, 2023, upheld a city commissioner attending a virtual meeting as long as the public could attend virtually too. Attorney General Opinion 20-03 agreed, and informal opinion to Stebbins, December 1st, 2015, said using electronic tech for public meetings is fine, but it still has to allow the board to conduct business with a quorum. 2. In-person quorum requirements. Now, if a quorum, the minimum number of members needed to conduct business, is required, boards can only use teleconferencing or other tech if a law allows it or if the in-person quorum rule is temporarily suspended during an emergency. Attorney General Opinion 20-03 said so. But even then, the public still needs access, whether by phone or other tech. Jackson versus City of South Bay, 358 Southern 3rd, 18 Florida 4th District Court of Appeal, 2023, noted that even during an emergency virtual meeting, the Sunshine Law still applies. Think of it this way: the same in-person quorum rules for a city council meeting generally apply to a retirement board too, as it's an administrative arm of the city's government. Attorney General Opinion 10-34 and Attorney General Opinion 21-21, January 2021, said that without a specific law saying otherwise, school board advisory committees also need an in-person quorum just like the main school board. However, Section 1001.43, subsection 10, Florida statutes, now lets school district special committees and advisory committees meet in person or via telecommunications, and Section 286.011, subsection 9, paragraph A, Florida statutes even lets regional citizen volunteer advisory committees use communications media technology for public meetings and workshops if they cover 4 or more counties. State boards. Good news for state boards. Attorney General Opinion 98-28 confirmed that Section 120.54, subsection 5, paragraph B2, Florida statutes, lets them hold public meetings entirely electronically, as long as they follow state rules for notice and public access. Attorney General Opinion 20-03 even pointed out that state boards have been doing this since 1997. B. Local boards. 1. Meetings. For local boards, the electronic-only meeting authorization, Section 120.54, subsection 5, paragraph B2, Florida statutes, only applies to state agencies. Attorney General Opinions 20-03 and 98-28 made that clear. So, unless there's a law that says it's okay or an emergency suspends the rule, a local board still needs a physical quorum present. Attorney General Opinion 20-03. For example, a district school board needs a physical quorum at its meetings because Section 1001.372, subsection 2, paragraph B, Florida statutes, says meetings must be held at a public place in the county. Attorney General Opinion 09-56 states that if a quorum is needed, the required number of members have to be physically present unless a law says otherwise. And Attorney General Opinion 10-34 says a city can't just pass an ordinance letting board members attend virtually to make a quorum. But Section 120.525, subsection 4, Florida statutes, does allow regional planning council members covering 3 or more counties to count towards a quorum if they participate by phone or video, as long as 1/3 of voting members are there in person and they give 24 hours notice. And some entities created by interlocal agreements can use tech for meetings too. That's Section 163.01, subsection 18, Florida statutes. Now, if a local board does have a physical quorum present, an absent member can still participate and vote by phone or other interactive tech if it's due to extraordinary circumstances, like illness. But whether a scheduling conflict counts, that's up to the board's good judgment. Attorney General Opinion 03-41. So if a local board has a physical quorum, they can let a member with health issues participate and vote using a speakerphone as long as everyone can hear and be heard. Attorney General Opinion 94-55. See also Attorney General Opinions 92-44, Ill County Commissioner voting virtually, and 02-82, physically disabled city advisory committee members voting electronically. 2. Workshops. For workshops where no formal action is taken, you don't always need a physical quorum if electronic media, like video conferencing or digital audio, is used for public access and participation. But remember, electronic tech can't replace the quorum needed for official action. So approving meeting minutes still needs a quorum, says Informal Opinion to Stebbins, December 1st, 2015. And even if they're virtual, workshop meetings still have to follow the Sunshine Law. For instance, the Attorney General's office said airport authority members can hold informal discussions and workshops over the internet as long as they give proper notice and allow interactive public access. Attorney General Opinion 01-66. This means having computers with internet access available to the public in designated places. But if a quorum is needed for action, members still need to be physically present, unless a law says otherwise. Though offering internet access is always a good idea for more public access. Attorney General Opinion 08-65 even suggested providing operating type assistance at public libraries where computers are available for these meetings. However, using an electronic bulletin board to chat about matters over days or weeks without letting the public participate online, that's a Sunshine Law violation as it gets around notice and access rules. Attorney General Opinion 02-32, Informal Opinion, to Cicchetti, March 23, 2006, said even with online public participation, using a bulletin board for extended discussions wouldn't follow the spirit of the Sunshine Law because it would be a huge burden on the public to constantly monitor it. But Attorney General Opinion 08-65 did say city advisory boards could use online bulletin boards for workshops up to 2 hours if proper notice and interactive access are provided. Finally, there's no rule that lets boards use electronic tech to take a workshop or meeting outside their jurisdiction and still claim Sunshine Law compliance just because they offer electronic public access. Informal Opinion to Sugarman, August 5th, 2015. This concludes our detailed discussion of personnel matters, purchasing meetings, quasi-judicial proceedings, real property negotiations, security meetings, social events, and both telephone and virtual meetings. Thanks for listening. In our next episode, episode 7, we'll shift our focus to notice and procedures, examining agenda requirements, meeting locations, and minutes. Until next time, remember, the truth dies in the dark, so let's leave the light on.